I'm using pen and ink and watercolour in Tayasui Sketches. Hi everyone, Steve Elliott here again. I've got my sketchbook out and I'm going to do a sketch using pen and ink. That is the sort of brush pen tool with the finest nib. That's the first one in the drop down list. I tried the second one, but it wasn't as opaque. So I changed it to the final one. Once I chose that, I was laughing. What I'm drawing today is a dry stone wall. I went for a walk around Bradgate Park. It's not so much as a park, more of a nature reserve, I guess. It's a bit like the Derby Peak district with, except there's lots of deer there, and there's a sort of a huge tarmac path leading into the entrance of it. But once you're in there, you can wander off and pretty much get lost from everybody else. And there's bracken and dry stone walls and deer about, and it's just a really nice walk, and it's quite high up, so it's very blowy, and it's a good way to get rid of those post-Christmas cobwebs. So I had a really nice walk around. I took about 100 photos. It was a dull day, so I couldn't really get sort of photographs with dynamic lighting in or anything like that. So what I was looking for was sort of a bit more detailed photos with things like, with texture in it, like this dry stone wall. So this is what I came up with, and I thought I've not really used the pen and ink brush much, so I gave that a go. I'm using the finest nib, as I say, and just adjusting the size of the brush. And I did the old sketch in black ink. And what I wanted to do was kind of use really thick lines and lines close together to get the impression of shadow and shape and form. So if you look at the tree, I've got lines squashed right close up towards the edge of the bark and then spread out a little bit more to give the impression of a round curve to that tree trunk. Because I wanted to use colour just to add colour. I didn't want it to use it to put shadows in or anything like that. I just wanted to put a colour wash so I could, spend a fair bit of time on the drawing and then literally put the colour on in 2 minutes. So that's what I was doing, and I didn't use any etching really either. I was just using thicker lines and thin lines to get the effect I wanted. So a technique I haven't really used a lot. Usually I'm sort of into etching quite a lot. There's a fair bit of scribbling goes off on this in the bracken in the foreground, and then all the branches in the trees. I couldn't be bothered to painstakingly draw all those in. I started, taking my time and trying to be careful, but after a few minutes, my impatience got the better of me, and I was just scribbling them in really quick to get the finish. And you'll see that on the left-hand side, the smaller branches, the tree trunks I take the time with, and the bigger chunky branches, but the twigs I start to just scribble in. And it's at this point, look, here we go, just scribbling them in, but I still think they look quite effective, and they do what I want to do. They give the impression of those twigs, and it meant I could get them on in literally minutes. And then I felt that there was a bit of a gap top left where I needed to put that little sort of clump of trees in there just to balance the whole thing off really. And then again, a little bit more detail around that path. Then at this point, I go into the colour, and I'm using the watercolour brush. I've created a new layer below the ink layer for this wash, so it doesn't cover up any of the ink. And I'm using the sort of larger watercolour brushes to put these washes on. And I love the way the colours blend together. You see that I've sort of put purples on there and browns and greens, and they mingle together. Flow together like they would with real paint. That's a really nice effect. I was liking that. And so, as I say, I'm just using this for local colour. I'm not using it to add any shadows, although I do leave some white areas on the stones to give the impression that the light was catching them and bouncing off them, to add a bit of sparkle, even though it was a very dull day. So that is my sketch of a dry stone wall in Bradgate Park. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, a big thumbs up as always is much appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, because I have lots of videos like this and I would love to be sharing them with you. So hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.